9/11 attacks. This vote, which again could happen as early as Tuesday, is a crucial opportunity to draw a line in the sand for human rights, for our values, to say that there are limits to the U.S. military alliance with Saudi Arabia, there are limits to U.S. militarism in the Middle East. It's asserting that we can't just throw bombs and tanks at every problem, and that in fact doing so, we're making the world less safe, we're making all of us less safe. As Stephen Kinzer put it, blocking the arms deal would, quote, send welcome chills through the corridors of power in the Pentagon, the war industry, and Saudi Arabia. It's extraordinarily rare that we have an up or down vote in the Senate on war and peace issues. So it's a unique chance to break with the post 9/11 policies of endlessly bombing and arming the Middle East. And we have exactly that opportunity over the next 72 hours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to echo Kate's thanks to the Richmond Peace Education Center and the ACLU. It's just so important that we have these opportunities to step back, take stock, and take action. It was interesting that Adria started earlier with a question about where we all had been on 9/11 on that morning. Of course, we all remember. If you were alive that day and you were above the age of 3, you probably remember. That morning I was at the CIA at my desk at the Office of Russian and European Analysis. I remember there was a TV going in the background, and we heard about the first plane, and then once we saw the second plane, there was a sort of eerie silence that kind of fell over the room, and I remember we all sort of drifted toward the windows, which were a lot like these windows actually, and sort of looked out the windows to see if there was an airplane coming toward us. It was a strange feeling. Within a few days, I managed to get transferred into the Counterterrorism Center, which is precisely what I wanted to do at the time. But within a little over a year after that, I had quit, and I had left. And the reasons that I left, I think, are, somewhat representative of why we're here today. What I lost on 9/11 or after 9/11 pales in comparison to what other people lost, clearly. But I think it's a little bit of a microcosm for some of the changes and the losses we've seen as a country. So in talking about those, I'll sort of weave in my personal experience a little bit. But I left because I was incredibly disillusioned with the course that the government had taken, with some of the specific actions that I saw the government take, with the politicization of a lot of the intelligence surrounding the effort to, I think, prearrange a number of facts in support of invading Iraq. Facts that were not true, that were blatantly distorted. And I also saw us engage in torture. I heard about it. I didn't personally, participate, but I heard about it, and that's what caused me to quit. So what have we lost? I've lost some innocence. I've lost a faith in our government, in its commitment to some of the principles that I thought were at the heart of what motivated our government, what motivated our citizenry. I think that the country, in a broader sense, has also lost that innocence. We've also lost moral standing. That's the first one that I really want to emphasize. We've lost the right to say that we don't torture. We've lost the ability to say that we don't send people somewhere else to be tortured. We've lost the ability to even say that we don't argue about what torture is. It's remarkable things. I don't want to be depressing, but this is an incredible loss of our country. It's an incredible loss of moral standing and credibility worldwide, and a loss of confidence, our own confidence, that we do the right thing. So torture, I think, to me, is an immensely problematic, objectionable practice we should never, ever engage in. But the fact that we're arguing about whether or not something is torture is also, I think, indicative of how far we've come. Right now, we're fighting tooth and nail at the ACLU just to make sure that the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence's huge behemoth report on torture and what happened in the CIA, particularly after 9/11, isn't closed off to the public forever, isn't basically lost forever. we might not win this fight. It's just hanging in the balance at the moment, but we have an ongoing Freedom of Information Act lawsuit that is at least, by virtue of the fact that it's pending, keeping that document with the agencies to which it was originally distributed. But the change of control over the Senate in 2014 made that a very doubtful and precarious enterprise. The new chairman of the Senate Select Committee is trying to claw back that report and make it so that it's very possible that not only will the public never see it, but the people in the agencies that were supposed to benefit from the knowledge and the findings in that report may never actually get to review that either. So we're barely, we're hanging on, but it's a tough fight right now. We also have managed to bring a lawsuit under what's called the Alien Tort Statute, which enables private citizens to bring actions against people for violations of the law of nature. Right now against the 2 CIA psychologists who were at the heart of the CIA's torture program. They're really the only 2 people who were involved in that program who have in any way been potentially held accountable for what happened. And that's partly because of the information that is, the greater amount of information that's available about what they did. And that has enabled us to go forward with that suit. And also that they were contractors. It's harder to get at the people who were inside the government, who were truly making the decisions about whether to go forward and whether to use these techniques and to pay these 2 psychologists. We're doing what we can, but what I'm trying to say is that it's a very difficult thing, and we're by no means assured of success. What else have we lost? We've lost some key due process protections. I think we all probably have a strong sense for what due process is. It's in the 5th Amendment to the Constitution. The 5th Amendment contains a number of very important guarantees, but the due process guarantee is that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And there are a number of programs and a number of ways in which the government has eroded our due process guarantee in the time since 9/11. If we just take those 3 words, life, liberty, and property, one by one, people have been deprived of life without due process, and typically that constitutional guarantee extends to U.S. citizens or anyone inside the United States, or U.S. citizens wherever they are. But as Kate mentioned, Anwar al-Awlaki, this is a U.S. citizen, and regardless of what he was doing or trying to do, he was killed purposely by the U.S. government without due process. He wasn't given any notice of the impending action against him. He wasn't given an opportunity to be heard. He was simply killed. And there's an argument about whether or not that was lawful. In our opinion, it was unlawful. But that's one example of the deprivation of life without due process. And there are plenty of others. Just an example. Liberty. There are a number of ways in which our liberties have been restricted, and we think they've been restricted in the absence of due process. One example is a strong system of watch lists that the government has instituted since 9/11. As of 9/11, there were 16 people on what was called a no transport list at that time. And after 9/11, this system exploded. It's been consolidated. The master watch list includes over 1 million people. And the consequences of inclusion on this this master watch list, or the system of watch lists to which it flows downstream, can range from inability to travel, intensive intrusive border screening, additional screening at airports. It can mean denial or indefinite delay of immigration benefits for people who are lawful permanent residents, green card holders. It can mean denial of a government license, a customs license, or a hazmat driver's license. Things that people rely on for their income. Government benefits, military benefits can be denied or delayed or impacted through this watch listing system. To say nothing of the denigration and stigmatization as a terrorism suspect. And it's not like this remains confidential. It becomes quite clear to people who are on the list and to their associates, to people they interact with, that this person is a suspected terrorist. And of course, as with so many other programs instituted after 9/11, this program, this series of programs, disproportionately and discriminatorily impact Muslims and people from Middle Eastern, South Asian communities. There's a leaked government document that shows that the city with the most Washington city individuals is New York City. That makes sense. It's the most populous city in the country. After that, Dearborn, Michigan, population 100,000. It happens to be the center of one of the largest populations of Middle Easterners outside of the Middle East. So if that doesn't sort of underscore what the focus of that program is, and of course, I'm not recalling any actual terrorist attacks or national security related issues related to Dearborn. We've also lost an incredible amount of privacy, and it depends on how we communicate and in what way. But no matter what, it doesn't matter. You've all lost privacy. We know about NSA surveillance. We know, about the disclosures that Edward Snowden made. We may not be as familiar with things like social media monitoring, which is pervasive and which can dramatically chill our exercise of First Amendment rights. So there are any number of other ways, border searches, TSA searches. These are ways in which our privacy has been impacted and eroded, and which I can talk about a little bit more later. And I won't have time for action items right now, but I will mention a couple. Pardon Snowden. This is a program this is a campaign that we just brought online, and it's an important one. Regardless of everyone's opinion of Edward Snowden, even those at the very top have acknowledged that he raised important questions, and the actions within the government in passing reform, I think, do sort of vindicate his actions in bringing those to light. Use encryption technology. Know and assert your rights when you're crossing borders or when you're at the airport or otherwise interacting with the government. And express outrage. It's important, and that's why we're all
here. I'm sorry for that delay. Good morning. Good morning. As has been said, we've lost a lot of things since 9/11. And one of the things we've lost that was also mentioned was the loss of innocence. I want to argue that few of us should have had a loss of innocence because we should have seen it coming. And so that's going to be the nature of my presentation this morning, seeing it coming. Anyway, there were social processes already in place, underway, when 9/11 occurred. Why else did they pass the Patriot Act in 72 hours? 3 days. So there already had to be stuff written. There already had to be conversations about it. There already had to be a lot of people behind it. So I just would suggest, and it would be the takeaway from my talk, a bit of it, is paying attention to such things. For example, some of the key provisions in the Patriot Act were what some congresspersons were pushing for, starting with the Oklahoma City, no, it's Tulsa, wasn't it, bombing. Okay, so they began to push for this right away. And so as soon as 9/11 happened, that's what they brought out. So we just kind of have to be vigilant about such things. And there's been enough discussion, and I want to use some of the little time I have to talk about some of the effects of the invasion of privacy. But I want to expand this a little larger and say that was already going on, and there were some other things already going on in the country that many people didn't know about that I think they should have known about. Okay, and if you didn't, there might be some people here, so I'm going to try to acquaint you with some of that. And one is, you may have heard all through the 1990s, I'm moving now to more domestic things and to more racial things. Of course, one of the things that happened is, well, let me stick with that. During the 90s, you heard a lot about the huge increase in crime. the growing crime rate, the super predators in Harlem and all the ghettos in the country. And so the result of that was aggressive policing, okay? Especially of blacks and other minorities. And I want to show some of this, and somehow I've already accidentally gotten there. If you take a look at this, the bottom line is, this is the last 75 years of the 20th century. The bottom line is the prison admission rates for white Americans. The top blue line is the prison admission rate for black Americans. And so all along, people knew about the disparities between blacks and whites, that blacks were in prison more than whites. And you can see it's more than twice the rate. It's more than twice as high. Except when we get to 1975, after 1975, something else happens. It just gets to be out of sight. The comparative prisonization rates. So I'm going to talk about these things and show you a few of the slides related to this right now. However, the crime rate was going down. The top one is the property rate. The bottom one is the violent crime rate. Violent crime rate has been going down since 1975. It's not true. It was not true then. I was made to appear like Chicken Little as I went around in the 90s arguing that it's not true because it was contrary to what people were learning, because that's what was being said all the time. Okay. How did these things occur? One is the so-called drug war. Started way back with the President Nixon administration. So there's some quick data. African Americans are about 12.6% of the population. They're about 14% of all illegal substance users and 14% of all sellers of illegal substances. These figures vary from year to year, but this is just a few years ago, and this is approximately what it is most of the time. So they are about 1/3 of all people arrested for illegal drugs. More than half of all people are convicted of illegal drug use and sales, and 2/3 of all people in prison. Let's look at Virginia. About 20% of the population, 22% of all illegal drug users, and over half of all drug arrests, and 3/4 of all drug prison admissions. And this seems to be further and further off track here, but I must tell you that crack is not now, and it never has been, a black urban drug. Ever since the advent of crack in the early 1980s, the majority, at least half of all users have been white. That was true in 1982, it is true in 2002, it's true in 2012 and 2016 as well. However, most people arrested for it, defendants in the courts are black. Result of that, so here's just some raw numbers, and I would argue that this is an unjust distribution here. Some 65,000 white adults are arrested for and incarcerated for drug offenses, compared to 82,000 black adults. But let's look at what it would be if blacks were arrested and incarcerated because of their use at the same rate as whites. Whites at the same rate of blacks would be 418,000. Or if blacks were arrested and incarcerated at the same rate as whites, it would be over 8,000. And I'll soon finish with this. But marijuana use rates is another issue. As you can see, this is the use rate. So among youth, whites use marijuana more than blacks. Among everyone over 12 years of age, blacks use it slightly more than whites. All right, well, let's look at the prosecution and incarceration for such issues. That's the United States, that's Virginia. That's for whites. United States, that's for blacks. Virginia, that's for blacks. We're talking about nearly 3 times as much in Virginia. I want to talk about the racial profiling in my 2 minutes here. Racial profiling is a result of this aggressive policing and this aggressive policing racial profiling. One of the things that happened there was the addition of people who appear to be Muslim. And that's what has been talked about earlier, were added to the profiling list. But we'd had driving while black forever. There's nothing new about it. We just added some new people to this. Later on, I'm going to give you some of the names, but just across the top. We've studied the 12 or 13 states that collect this data on all traffic stops. Out of 12 states, blacks are stopped disproportionately higher than whites in 11 of them. And they are searched in 9 of these 12 states disproportionately. And the yield is whites have contraband more often than blacks in 6 of these 9 states. So there is no police reason for these disparities. More differences. Blacks are killed at 5 times the rate of unarmed whites. Of 102 known cases last year of blacks killed by the police, with the blacks being unarmed, only 10 officers were charged. Out of these 10 officers being charged, only 2 were convicted. So, as I conclude, I want to just have you think about something with me. It seems that what we have here is not only the killing of black Americans by police officers, but we have the citizens' acceptance of police behavior. And that is of more consequence to me, because they couldn't do it if the public disagreed with it. And let's go further. It seems to me that in the America, okay, 30 seconds, we have moved to the point with all of this militarization and the whole scope of things we're talking about here, to the point that we are treating police lives as more valuable than citizen lives. Now, correct me later if I'm wrong, but what's being argued, and I won't go through my quotes from people who are experts at this and some of the trial information, but they said the police felt threatened. He felt his life was at danger, and therefore he shot the person who appeared to be reaching for a gun or something. But he felt. Now, do you think that you would get off if that was your excuse for killing the person sitting next to you? Yes, sir. I rest my case.
Dr. B for making all of those connections. Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson.
Ms. Ward? I'll give you a check. I just jotted down 4 words up here, and they just happen to be Coleridge language. They happen to be alliterative: synchronicity, serendipity, similarity, and synergy. And they refer to my last 10 days. It's remarkable what's happened in the last 10 days. Basically, in the political and academic community. First, I spoke out at Sillis to 300 and some odd people with Rand Paul present. He'd asked me to come talk about war. And of course, I referred to that great Virginian, often called the father of the Constitution, James Madison. And his contributions are many, but his two greatest contributions are his eloquent disposition on the need for separation of church and state. He didn't even want chaplains in the military. I think he was right. But Washington failed on him, and he let chaplains go. But his other one is war. And James Madison said, war is the surest route to tyranny when you place it in the hands of the executive. Period. He said many more things in that regard, but that's what he said. That just rings with a clarity ring. Then I went to see the private premiere of Oliver Stone's Snowden. I'd already seen the documentary that won an Academy Award. And I realized that the people watching that revelation with me, despite the cinematic triumph that it really is, it's such a cinematic triumph that Oliver Stone morphs the actor into the actual Edward Snowden at the end, and people didn't even know it. You go from the actor to Snowden, speaking some of his more eloquent words. And you notice that right now, the Congress is mounting a major campaign that disabuse all Americans of any feeling of confidence or courage about Edward Snowden. And Democrats and Republicans alike are joining this campaign. Then I went, essentially, to give a talk at the University of Pennsylvania at a conference called The Rule of Law and Ethics and Leadership, run by the law school. And we had a panel called The Dark Side of Leadership. And I identified with that, having been close to the dark side of leadership in an evil sort of way, like probably no one else at that conference. And I listened to those very talented, very educated people talk about people like Hitler, Stalin, Mao Zedong, the Cultural Revolution, and 40 to 60 million dead people. And then I had my 50th wedding anniversary last night.